Welcome to the Fantasy Flex Waiver podcast for Week 10. I am your host, Chris Raybon, joined as always by my dude, Sean Koerner. We'll also have Samantha Previte on later to talk about waivers by each position. But let's start with our DFS breakdown after I say what up to Sean. Sean, how you doing? How's your week?
It was a good week. I usually make fun of people and they say, oh, that week was crazy in the NFL. I'm like, wait till next week. But that legitimately was a crazy week. I mean, we had some massive upsets, very tough week to project, but in the end, did really well. 7-3 on props. Finally had a bad week with spreads and totals. I went 0-2, but I'll take it. As long as the props are back in line, it should be good to go the second half. And I believe you had a really good week 9, correct?
Oh yeah. It felt good. I think it was week 7 when I really bottomed out. Like there was just like one week where I felt like I didn't know anything about football. Like it was like I went like 0-4 on spreads and totals, but the last 2 weeks have been really good. Last week I would have actually gone undefeated on spreads and totals if it weren't for the last 2 bets I made, which were reacting to the Tua news. I bet Houston at like 5.5, still lost, and then you're gonna laugh at this. I took the Bills money line in game in like whatever Trevor Lawrence like went down at like minus 555. I mean, I only had put 1 unit on it, but like I was like, it felt like a plus EV bet because I was calculating the probability, pregame of them winning, and then the probability of them winning without Jacksonville starting quarterback. And I was like, okay, this is still a plus EV bet. And of course they get upset, so that was fun. But no, it was a really good week. I believe somebody tweeted at me that the cash lineup, my cash lineup would have won the FanDuel single entry by 8 points. Like,
so
when
that happens.
Yeah, I think the cash lineup won like it like quadrupled up in the Millie Maker too or something like that. So yeah, it was a good week on DraftKings too.
And we almost cashed in our 5-pick second half. Packs on Prize Picks. Yeah, so we just needed Adrian Peterson to do something. Unfortunately, that was way too much to ask for, but I felt really good about 4 of those 5 props. The only one I was iffy about was the AP one, and sure enough, that's the one that lost. But I've been loving those second half props on Prize Picks.
Yeah, definitely. For everyone listening, this is the Fantasy Flex Waiver podcast presented by Prize Picks. They post second half lines and game script and things like that. You can kind of combine an entry, make like a 4 or 5 pick entry where, you're kind of projected out the game script. Last night, Sean and I were saying, hey, Matthew Stafford's probably going to throw for a lot of yards in the second half. Maybe the Titans passing game doesn't do as much because of, because they were ahead. So, things like that, you can really get an edge and hit some of those. So be sure to check those out. But let's get into the Monday Night Showdown slate pretty briefly, because this is not one of the greater games projected. I mean, anything could happen, but we have a 7-point spread in favor of the Pittsburgh Steelers. The total just 39 against the Chicago Bears. So I'll start with the captain spot. I'm guessing it's your boy, Najee Harris.
Yes, it begins and ends with Najee Harris. And, given how crazy week 9 has been, it would be fitting for this game to be like a super high scoring shootout, right? So, we could be surprised here, but I do think Najee Harris is the play. And then obviously you'll want to play the Steelers defense to correlate with that. But I think a contrarian way to go would be, to play either Darnell Mooney or Allen Robinson in the captain slot. I mean, I don't feel really good about either one tonight, but they're due to have a big game at some point, right? So it could be tonight. And I think the rostership in the captain slot will probably be lower than where it should be. But at the end of the day, I love having Najee in the captain, so I think he's a smash spot tonight, and very high floor and high ceiling combo.
Yeah, he ended up being my RB3 for the week, behind only Kamara, Jonathan Taylor and Kamara. So I expect him to have a good game. I think the Bears receivers are a little too contrarian for me. Wow. We're still in Pittsburgh. The pressure for the Steelers, I mean, they're top, they're one of the best defenses at generating pressure. Right. And I'm not even going to read off the Justin Fields numbers under pressure, because I'm not trying to play my boy like that. We had high hopes for him coming into the season. Just know that they're really bad. So I think the probably the play for me, if I'm going away from Najee, is just Deontay Johnson. Steelers obviously struggle on offense. They're kind of inconsistent. So maybe, turns out like last primetime game with Tennessee, where maybe Big Ben throws a pick or they fumble, give Chicago a short field and they end up throwing a little more. The Bears are 32nd dead last in DVOA against number one wide receivers. So that's kind of a little bit off the grid. I think Najee will obviously be a lot higher owned in that captain spot, but I do like Deontay as well. And unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, if you drafted him, but David Montgomery is back. So that kind of, there's probably going to be kind of a split backfield with Khalil Herbert and Montgomery tonight. So that it's going to be tougher to get value out of one of those Bears backs in that captain spot. All right. What about the cheat codes? Who do you like?
Yeah, so I think Khalil Herbert might be sneaky because, like you said, David Montgomery is expected to return tonight. We'll wait and see what other information we can get on that, but I think they might just ease him in tonight. Damian Williams is out, so they definitely want to have, another running back in there to spell Herbert. And I think they want to get Montgomery some work in before their week 10 bye. So clearly he's healthy enough to return before the bye. I think he'll get, at least 6 to 10 touches, but I think Herbert's rostership might be lower because of it, but Herbert's looked really good. So I could see him being more of the workhorse back for one more game. So I think he's a sneaky play tonight. It's really hard to find sneaky ancillary receivers in this game, but I think Marquise Goodwin might be the guy for the Bears. His routes run typically go in the 40 to 50% range. And Darnell Mooney's a bit banged up. So, he could have to step up tonight. And Goodwin's the type of player that could break the slate with a single catch. So I like sprinkling in some Goodwin lineups. And then on the Steelers side, James Washington and Zach Gentry would be nice leverage against, Chase Claypool, Deontay Johnson, Pat Freiermuth. I love all three of those, pass catchers for the Steelers, but, Washington would be good leverage against the receivers. And then Gentry, he ran 35% routes run last week. Saw an end zone target, wasn't catchable, but he ended up going 3 for 39 last week in the air. So I like him as leverage against Freiermuth. But yeah, overall, a really weak slate when it comes to just playmakers.
Yeah, for me, it's the defenses. I mean, I love the Steelers defense, and this is a total of 39. So if you're looking for some variance, I mean, the Bears defense is not the worst thing. Now, I do worry about the Bears defense a little bit, no Khalil Mack, obviously. So it's going to be tougher, but we've seen defenses play well just when you think they're not going to. I mean, look at Denver coming out there without Von Miller and just completely shutting down the Dallas Cowboys. So, the total is 39 for a reason. I think that's pretty on point. 39-40 is kind of where I have that number as well. So, for me, it's just the defenses. I think Claypool may have a decent game. Yeah. The Bears have been weak to the deep right side of the field. They're fourth worst in DVOA. So that's where Claypool gets, a lot of his deep targets to that side. So Chicago also will play man coverage. And so Claypool tends to be better against man coverage. He's not a guy that Big Ben looks too often against zones because, I guess he's a bigger guy, young guy, still raw route runner, doesn't always find those sweet soft spots in the zones, but you got him one-on-one. And this is the kind of game where you're probably going to get one-on-one coverage, these low scoring type of games. So I'd look for Claypool, but yeah, it's not one of those games where I want to get too fancy with a lot of just cheap guys. I mean, James Washington and Ray McLeod split the snaps. Goodwin, like you said, he could break the slate on one catch, which he better do because he'll probably only get one catch. Right. Same, similar situation to Demary Bird. They waived Rashod Bateman in the least surprising move of all time. So it's it's kind of slim pickings here. I mean, this is a slate where you might actually get some value playing the kickers. Usually you don't because their ceiling is so capped. But I mean, a total of 39, you get a few field goals here and there. Especially a 50-yard plus, and you might actually get some value there with the kickers. I don't think Lambeau was a kicker last week. I think Lambeau was signed. He was signed because remember Tomlin did the fake field goal and Boswell got lit up, and then
that's right,
and then he was questionable to play, but he's good to go. So Boswell's good to go. Yeah. Lambeau, they signed him to the practice squad, but they don't need to elevate him because Boswell
is good to go.
Fortunately,
incredible after taking that massive hit for somebody that never takes hits that he's able to play.
Yeah, I mean, that was still a questionable call in that kind of game.
Yeah.
But we digress. That's going to do it for our showdown breakdown. All right, now it's time for our Week 10 waiver priorities. And joining us is the lovely Samantha Previte. Samantha, what up?
Hey guys, I am just like recovering from, I don't even know what to call that. Like I woke up and I was thinking, like, was that just a dream? Was that trash fire was late just a dream? And it wasn't.
Oh man. So some people's trash is another's treasure. Cause I love that play. I love when like things go wrong. Like I love like, chaos but yeah. What were you going to say, Sean?
No, I was going to agree with Samantha how usually I say people are being overly dramatic when they're like, oh, that week, whatever was insane. No, this week it was actually insane. That was just pure chaos. I'm kind of with Raybon. I do love the chaos, but even that was a little too much for me.
I believe it was 9 underdogs covered and 7-1 outright of the 13 games in week number 9. So, if you play DFS tournaments, obviously it's probably a good week because a lot of, if you're a contrarian player, a lot of things happen. But for fantasy, if you're just, looking for some start sits, things did get a little wonky there. So we'll get into the top waivers. All right, so let's start at running back. And it's kind of an ugly week for waiver pickups, but we do have fantasy managers with Joe Mixon on bye, Khalil Herbert, Devontae Booker, if you've been using him as well, is on a bye. So Samantha, I'll start with you. Who is your top waiver priority this week? Any love for Jordan Howard, maybe some Eno Benjamin? Both of them found the end zone a week ago.
It is really lean out there, guys. So yeah, Eno Benjamin is intriguing. Obviously, James Conner was the star of that show, but it looks like that Chase Edmonds, who was injured on the very first play of the game, suffered a high ankle sprain. Don't know the timetable on that, but like probably 3 to 4 weeks at least. So we could definitely see some Eno Benjamin mixed in there. And like, that's a testament to how bad this waiver cycle is, that's who I'm leading with. Jordan Howard, obviously it's like another day, another Eagles running back, not named Kenny Gainwell, that sees the lion's share of the work. He saw 17 attempts for 71 yards and a touchdown. Really good matchup, obviously, but this committee is really tough to trust. I don't know if there's anyone. I obviously felt like Boston Scott was going to be the guy since he got a lot of the early downs work last week and the previous week, and then this week he was barely incorporated.
Yeah, I think that what's going on with Philly was that Chargers team, everyone knows you can run on them. And it seemed to me like they wanted to go with more of like a power running game in that one. So Boston Scott is probably their most talented overall back, but he's a little bit on the smaller side. He's more of a special teams returner, like dual threat kind of guy. So maybe they just felt that it was, more of a power game. So yeah, I mean, Howard scares me. This matchup at Denver, I could see them not running the ball as much with any of those guys. So it's tough. And then of course, Gainwell got a touchdown inside. So I think Eno Benjamin looked really good. Sean, what did you think? I know you saw that truck stick that Eno Benjamin delivered late in that game against the 49ers.
Yeah, he's talented, and he's a logical Chase Edmonds replacement. He was a really good pass catching back at Arizona State. He was able to handle 20 to 25 carries a game. But if anything, this is going to be just more work for James Conner. I mean, he looked like Derrick Henry reincarnated last week. I mean, he looked really good. So he's going to be a high-end RB2 if Chase Edmonds is out. But Benjamin, he could sneak into like RB3 flex in PPR format. So if you're desperate, he's a good ad. But it's a pretty thin week on the waiver wire. I would say Devin Singletary, if he's available, looks like he's rostered in 64% of leagues, but if he's available in your league, add him. Because it looks like Zach Moss is going to be in the concussion protocol. So Singletary could be the lead back against the Jets this week. So if he's out there, add him for sure.
Yeah, same thing goes for Brandon Bolden, JJ Taylor, because Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson look like they both may be in the protocol. We're recording this early Monday, so not exactly sure how that's going to turn out. But as of now, the news we have is that both of them left the game with head injuries. All right, of these other guys that found the end zone, maybe put up decent fantasy performances, who do we trust? Talking about Devonta Freeman, Le'Veon Bell, Ty Johnson of the Jets going against Buffalo. Bell and Freeman are on Thursday Night Football, so I'm sure people will get some questions about those guys just if people have him, do they start him Thursday? And Adrian Peterson obviously got in the end zone in prime time. Sean, I'll start with you this time. Any of those guys interest you if managers are in a pinch? Maybe you're a Mixon owner and you just need somebody to fill in for this week.
I would go with Devonta Freeman. They play Thursday night. We'll know if Latavius Murray is able to return by then. So I think if Latavius Murray's out, Freeman's the way to go. And, their stat lines were similar, but Freeman really did outplay Bell. Freeman had 58% snap share and 15 touches. So he is the lead back when Murray's out. And I also commented that, we can't expect much receiving work from Ravens backs. And then, Devonta Freeman, of course, he went 2 catches, 4 yards and a receiving touchdown. So that's what I get for saying that. So, he could get a couple of catches here, and it's an easy matchup against the Dolphins. So he could be an RB2 if Murray is out. The other guy would probably be Brandon Bolden. Like you said, if Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson are out, I think Brandon Bolden will have a pretty big workload. He's the guy that Belichick trusts. He can handle, 10 to 15 rush attempts if needed, and he's the main pass catching back. I don't know if JJ Taylor can really handle much more than 5 to 10 touches, so he'd be sort of the change of pace back. So Brandon Bolden would probably be the other stash I would make early in the week.
Man, how about you? Of all those names, Freeman, Bell, Ty Johnson, Adrian Peterson, Bolden, McNichols is still out there in some leagues. Mark Ingram, I think Mark Ingram should be rostered.
I was just going to say Mark Ingram's the guy at 38% rostered that did see an uptick in work this week, in spite of some, I don't even know what to call the quarterback situation in New Orleans, because it was very confusing to me. But I think he's a guy that at least has somewhat of a floor, because it looks like he's going to get some work. Ty Johnson, maybe in PPR formats, might be intriguing. Brandon Bolden, of course, if one of Stevenson or Harris missed time. Freeman definitely makes sense if, like Sean said, if Murray ends up missing this game as well. And maybe a deeper league dart throw I have on here is if Jamal Williams misses more time, Jermar Jefferson could be an interesting ad in the deepest of leagues.
Watch it be Godwin is Wabuke or whatever his name is. The other guy. Yeah, no, that's a good point. Williams, we'll see what his health is looking like, but DeAndre Swift just hasn't had it with running the football. I mean, probably no one is going to have it against the Steelers this week, so it's tough. But yeah, I agree with Ingram, and I might be a Saints whisperer. 2 weeks ago, I picked them to upset the Bucks, and then last week I picked the Falcons against them. But this is Sean Payton as an underdog, and he is just great as an underdog. He's great coming off a loss, so I wouldn't be surprised if the Saints rack up 30, 35 carries in this game, end up, upsetting the Titans, and everyone's very confused because the Titans just played this amazing game on Monday night, on Sunday Night Football. So yeah, I think Ingram at 38%, he should, if we're talking on this pod next week, if he's not double that, I would be highly confused, and I don't think we'd be doing our job.
If you're the Saints whisperer, can you tell me what the quarterback situation is going to be this week?
I have it early week projection. I have Trevor Siemian getting 66.6.
Oh, no.
And Taysom Hill getting 33.3. That's as best as I can do.
Hopefully we just get full Taysom Hill. Just unleash him this week. That would be ideal. I
think we should. You could just see that coming from a mile away, right? The Saints, fresh off an upset of the Bucks, starting Trevor Siemian against this Falcons team that no one believes in is just this is not going to go well. And the fact that they actually made it close at the end, was good. I think we got a Marquez Callaway touchdown. So my best ball teams enjoyed that. The best ball teams that drafted him probably 5 rounds too high. But I digress. Samantha, because you're on this podcast, I have to ask you my favorite question to ask you every time you come out this podcast. Who's the third best running back in the Falcons backfield, and why is it Mike Davis?
I hate this question. Oh my goodness. That was obviously disappointing. And that's a giant L for me. Very cool call on my part. Cordarrelle Patterson looked really awesome in that game. It just seems like it was a little bit of a defensive mismatch for the Saints.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
Because, they looked so strong going into this week in terms of defense, and then didn't know what to do with Cordarrelle Patterson. So full send on Cordarrelle Patterson and throw Mike Davis back on the waiver wire.
Oh, so you're dropping him. That was kind of my question. In all seriousness, I mean, Davis is still playing like, he's kind of playing like starting running back snaps because Patterson shifts between the slot and out. I mean, he was playing out wide last game because I guess, no Calvin Ridley anymore. But you're throwing him on the waiver wire. Like you're just done with him is what you're saying.
I mean, in 12 team leagues, which I think are a lot of leagues, I'd be willing to throw him back on the waiver wire. I mean, there are guys that I would be more excited to pick up.
Sean,
so I'm curious, when you say he's the third best running back, who's the number 2? Are you implying Wayne Gallman or Quadri Olison,
whoever's
or the
active,
fullback
whoever's the other active Keith Smith?
Yeah, the fullback Keith Smith. Are you implying he's the second best?
I think listen, I had the Falcons yesterday, and they would have probably still covered the number regardless, but you never know. But when they had the chance to win the game, and they're driving downfield, Mike Davis almost fumbled when they were just setting up the field goal, like at the end of the game. Like that's how he did fumble, actually, I believe. So, I mean, it seems like every week he's just not doing what we need him to do. I feel like he's still like a borderline top 30 back just off usage, but I would be looking for ways not to start.
That was a tough matchup though.
Yeah. Oh,
this week.
You don't run on the Saints.
Right. And I feel bad because I almost got this right. Heading into the season, I said, Mike Davis is a frozen pun tier running back, but I was like, I don't know who's going to steal carries from him because it's not going to be Cordarrelle Patterson. And I was so close to getting it right. So close.
Partial credit for that.
Like 50. That's an F though. But I got it half right.
I mean, we're grading on a curve when it comes to Cordarrelle Patterson. I don't think anyone saw that coming. I mean, we actually mentioned him a few times
after week one. We saw the underlying usage and we were like, wait a minute.
Yeah,
he has potential here, but it wasn't until like week 4 or 5 I really committed to him being a low end RB1, but eventually got there.
And by the way, I was looking at preparing for the pod, I always look at the percent rostered in Yahoo leagues, and Cordarrelle Patterson is not 100%. And so please go. If you are in that like 7% of leagues, what are you doing? Pick up that man right now.
Those are just like abandoned leagues, I think. Like that's
like
not real.
The owner started like 0-3 and then just checked out, and like no one's picking them. Like I don't know, it's odd. But all right, let's go to quarterbacks, and this is just more about who we picking up to stream this week. Not too many quarterbacks of relevance on bye. Joe Burrow, you've probably been starting him, so you'll need a replacement. And then Daniel Jones, if you've been streaming him. Not that it's been a bumpy ride, but he's on bye as well. So looking at some of the available options here, I think the guy that stands out to me is Carson Wentz at home against the Jaguars. The Colts are implied to score 28.5 points by the Vegas odds. Samantha, is that kind of the guy you're looking at, or does somebody else catch your eye?
He's not a guy that's in my column only because he's 60% rostered at this point and I have a 50% cutoff. But yeah, I mean, that's definitely an attractive matchup. There are so few guys right now that are under 50% that I was just grasping at straws. So the ones that I have listed, and none of them have really great matchups, are Teddy Bridgewater, Jimmy Garoppolo, and Taylor Heinicke. And that's like if you're really desperate. So yeah, I mean, if you can grab Carson Wentz, I would definitely go for it.
I like that Teddy Bridgewater call. Ben Roethlisberger and the Steelers, they're implied for 26.5 against Detroit. So, I mean, we'll see how he plays tonight against the Bears. But Teddy Bridgewater, he has essentially the highest implied total out of those other guys you mentioned. And this Philly defense, I said it on Convince Me yesterday. It is just so easy to prepare for. I mean, I don't know if you got to see the Chargers-Eagles game, but it was a close game. But the Eagles didn't stop the Chargers. Like at all, the whole game. Like the Chargers just went up and down the field and back up and back down the field. Like that was so it's like this Bronco offense, the way they played against Dallas, having Jerry Jeudy back now, you scored 30 points and Cortland Sutton had like 1-2 catches I think he had under 10 yards.
Yeah. Noah Fant should be back this week.
Noah Fant should be back.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think Albert Okwuegbunam got hurt, but I just wanted to say Okwuegbunam live on air.
Nicely done.
Tim Patrick, though, love that guy.
I feel like it's like every week I kind of make a joke and I'm like, Tim Patrick kind of looks like the Broncos' best receiver. And then I'm like, okay, but Judy's back this week. Sutton's back this week. Like he'll probably take a back seat. And then he looks again like the Broncos' best receiver. He made a play where they were short of the first down mark. And I hate when this happens all around the league and it needs to stop. because the numbers prove that it's a very inefficient way to go about it. But teams throw short of the sticks, and they threw short of the sticks. And Patrick just made like this crazy spin move and just like somehow got a impossible first down on a third down play. That really impressed me. But what were you gonna say, Sean?
I was gonna say call Tim Patrick a rich man's Zach Pascal. Just the guy that we always overlook, and he ends up being one of the top receivers despite all the other talent. Like I'm done underestimating Tim Patrick. So yeah, he looked really good this weekend. I think he'll continue to produce.
Yeah,
because I do think Tyler Heinicke is a pretty good option this week. Right now he's my QB 12. Again, it's earlier in the week, but his rushing upside gives him a high floor ceiling combo. He's facing the Buccaneers, which is a pass funnel defense, and that's a team that the legend of Tyler Heinicke was born last year in the wild card round of the playoffs. So he's played well against them before. He should be getting Logan Thomas back this week, possibly Curtis Samuel. So he has a ton of weapons. It should be a pass heavy game script. So I think Heinicke is a good streaming option this week.
Yeah, I definitely like Heinicke. Logan Thomas will obviously be a big addition. I have no any confidence that Curtis Samuel will ever play a complete game of football. Right. But hopefully, guys like Antonio Gibson might have gotten a little bit healthier with the bye. So hopefully Washington's offense can put something together against this leaky Bucs defense.
I mean, they'll have to, because this is Tom Brady off a bye, off a loss. Tampa Bay's putting up 50.
Yeah.
So
Brady's had 2 weeks of stew over that. So yeah.
Oh yeah, he's
Brady game.
He's tender. He's simmering. That stew is tender.
Is Antonio Brown due back too?
No, it says he's in a walking boot. So I don't know if that's that. Yeah. That doesn't sound good, but
no.
Hey, Scotty Miller looks like he's gonna be back though. So
there we go.
They'll be fine. Tampa Bay will be fine. But I think it really comes down to if we know Logan Thomas is definitely going to play, Samuel, Diami Brown, as long as the full complement of receiving game options are there, I like Heinicke. If it's going to be kind of a one-man band again with McLaurin, I get a little worried because we've seen this Bucs defense improve and they're getting healthier as well, so it might not be the same Bucs defense that we saw when they were just getting two cornerbacks and a safety hurt every single week. So I think that's something, obviously monitor our rankings and see where we end up. I think I have them 18th to start the week. So I'm a little lower than you guys, but that's just more due to the question marks and whatnot with the health of Washington's pass catchers. Let's talk about pass catchers though. Jamar Chase is on bye. T. Higgins, if you've been starting him, he's on bye. Brandon Cooks as well. So, there are some interesting pops, I guess you could call them, by wide receivers last week. Samantha, who is your kind of go-to guy at wide receiver here? I mean, Brandon Aiyuk showed signs of life. Olamide Zaccheaus caught a couple of touchdowns. Elijah Moore continues to play only about 2/3 of the snaps in the crowded Jets, receiving core, but did flash. And, you always kind of look for these guys over the second half of the season, these rookies. And then, of course, DeSean Jackson signed with the Vegas Raiders and has a chance to take over maybe even the full Henry Ruggs role. So who do you like at wide receiver?
First of all, did you guys see the Aiyuk fumble or whatever, where I was just like, we will not see Brandon Aiyuk until week 17 or something like that. Obviously, if he's available, he's definitely an attractive option. He is over 50% rostered on Yahoo, but yeah, Moore would be probably a guy that I am looking at. He had a pair of touchdowns in week 9. Pretty interesting, that he did so well with Mike White and Josh Johnson. Obviously carries some risk, and it's against the Bills this week, but the Jets actually have a really soft schedule after that. So I think he could have some flex appeal after that. Rashod Bateman, 36% rostered. I mean, he's been kind of quiet the past 2 games and everything, but they face the Dolphins this week and he's getting the targets, and I've seen promise, at least from watching him. So he's a guy that I'm excited about. Tim Patrick, we just mentioned him, 25% roster. He's out there. Go get him. He's a guy that I've been advocating for a while. And then I don't know, maybe Donovan Peoples-Jones could be an interesting ad with Odell gone. He obviously had a nice game, so maybe a deeper league ad for me.
Yeah, I didn't realize Patrick was that low. I think Patrick is the guy because, again, this Eagles defense, it's just so easy to play against. They're just going to give up catches and try not to, break when they get in the red zone and on third down. So love the Patrick call. Sean, how about you? What is your take on Aiyuk, first of all? I know you've been fading him at times. I'm curious where you're at.
Yeah, last week, the closer we got to kickoff, the more I loved him. Last week, the signs were there that he was going to have a good game. He was coming off season highs in week 8 and snap rate, route rate, and target rate or target share. So he also scored a 2-point conversion. Kyle Shanahan was saying nice things about him to the media. So all the signs were there. He had a good game. Yeah, that fumble was brutal. But they don't have really many other options behind him. So, and we know that he has wide receiver 2 potential. So he's definitely worth adding, if not playing this week. So love Aiyuk. Samantha already mentioned Rashod Bateman. I think he's a must add in deeper leagues. He season high 81% routes run rate, which makes sense. He's a rookie coming off an injury. So he's only going to get better in the second half. And, the downside with him is assuming Sammy Watkins returns at some point will limit his ceiling, but assuming Sammy Watkins will be healthy at all is a pretty bold assumption. So I would just add Bateman, assuming that Sammy Watkins won't be available the next few weeks. So love the upside with Bateman. I'm fading Zaccheaus. I'm not buying into those 2 touchdowns. The top 2 receivers in this offense are Kyle Pitts and Cordarrelle Patterson. So I'm not buying into Zaccheaus. The underlying metrics aren't good for him. So don't overspend for his 2 touchdowns last week. And then DeSean Jackson. I mean, if you love 2 catches for 60 yards every other game, sure, add him. But he's going to be too inconsistent for me to trust, especially with Derek Carr. I don't think they're a good fit necessarily. So I'm fading on D-Jax as much as I love him for DFS. He's not a good ad for season long.
I like D-Jax as a speculative ad because, I mean, we came into the season pretty, not too high on Henry Ruggs, and Derek Carr's been throwing the ball down the field when he has the guy to do it. And the way I'm kind of looking at it is D-Jax had his choice of where to sign, kind of thing. And he didn't just get a minimum deal with the Raiders. So he probably went to a place where he wants to get used, right? And so the Raiders, I mean, they have Zay Jones, Marcel Aitman, Dylan Stoner. Those are the guys competing with him. I could see him playing like the 70-80% routes run.
That would be awesome.
That Ruggs did. I don't think it's far-fetched. And they do play the Kansas City Chiefs, which that could turn into a shootout. I mean, it's hard to say now with the way the Chiefs are playing offense, but that's still Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce. So I would add him for this week. I agree that I think there's a low floor, but if you're talking about a guy that you can spend like $1 on or $2, and stash him, why not? Same thing for Elijah Moore. Like he's not getting Zaccheaus. I agree. I'm out on him. 54% routes run last week. So Tajay Sharp actually had 86%. So that was just kind of an anomaly. But Moore is only playing 2/3 of the snaps, but he's been productive, and you expect these rookies to kind of play well down the stretch. So I think Moore is an ad. Aiyuk, obviously, because he was drafted as like a wide receiver 2. So you're just getting value. Even if he does frustrate from time to time, you're getting a lot of value if you can pick him up for almost pennies right now. And then let's close it up with tight end. Not really a week where many people are going to be in a bind because you have the Bengals, the Texans, the Giants, and the Bears on bye. None of those teams have tight ends that people are starting. But if you do need a tight end, I'm guessing it would be Dan Arnold at Indianapolis, right? I mean, he's the guy that keeps, he's one of the top targets for Jacksonville. Sean, I know you like Arnold. Is that the guy that, if somebody needs a tight end this week, that's the guy you'd be going to, right?
Of course. I mean, I've been promoting Arnold since week 5 when he had that 79% routes run game. I've been all in on Arnold. So he's my tight end 12 right now. If you've been leaning on a guy like Ricky Seals-Jones the past few weeks, swap him out for Dan Arnold because Logan Thomas is coming back. So get off the Ricky Seals-Jones train and hop on the Dan Arnold one. It's pretty fun getting, 5 catches for 6 yards every week from a streaming tight end. Can't beat that.
I mean, you were promoting Dan Arnold for a minute. I was promoting Dan Arnold since like the inception of this podcast.
You're like the hipster Dan Arnold fan, like when he was underground, when he wasn't doing anything.
Oh man, I remember him on the Saints when he was like their 4th tight end. By the way, let's pour one out for Juwan Johnson, who I think was a healthy scratch last week.
How the mighty have fallen.
Right. Samantha, any thoughts quickly on tight end?
Yeah, I was fading Arnold last week just in a tough matchup, and he still did pretty well. 4 of 7 targets for 60 yards. He has at least 7 targets and 60 yards in 3 of the last 4 games. So, I mean, like really, as Sean said, that's like kind of the best you can ask for a guy that's 27% rostered out there. He could be like a borderline top 12 play this week, and he gets a lighter schedule down the road. So he's an interesting ad. And then Pat Freiermuth, a guy that I have just been all over. I'm once again asking people to add him. I know that some of that relies on Eric Ebron not playing, but I have just been really excited to watch him play. He has exactly 7 targets in each of the past 2 games. And I think he could be a fringe tight end 1 at a very lean position right now.
Yeah. And I think he should play like twice as much as Ebron, even when Ebron comes back. And they might agree with that because we talked about Zach Gentry earlier. So Zach Gentry is just a better tight end to have on the field as a blocker. And they used to do it like Ebron was the pass catcher and whoever else was the kind of more blocker, inline, whatever kind of guy like Freiermuth. But Freiermuth should be the pass catcher, and then Gentry should be the blocker. And that's just how they should play it. So I would kind of hold on to Freiermuth. I agree. I just think that he may end up still retaining the same usage when Ebron comes back. All right, that is going to wrap it up for our Week 10 Fantasy Flex Waivers podcast presented by Prize Picks. Samantha, thank you for joining us. Tell the people what you got going on for the rest of the week.
Thank you so much. Obviously follow me on Twitter at Samantha NFL. You can find, I'll like tweet out all my work there, but I do the waiver column, the start sit column, and a lot of like injury worry meters now. Just kind of, I've been picking out like 3 to 5 guys a week that we're really worried about and kind of talking about them. So I did like a Cardinals one last week and kind of prepping you for if this guy sits, then these are the things that should happen and whatnot. So those have been fun. And just all things, I guess, fantasy that I usually do throughout the week. 21 questions tomorrow with Dan Harris of Fantasy Pros, which is great. And then on my mailbag on Thursday.
All right. Well, check that out, everybody. And thank you so much for joining us. You can find Sean on Twitter at @_oddsmaker. You can find me at Chris Raybon. You can find us at those same handles in the free award-winning Action Network app, where you can follow our bets and track yours for free. You can find our fantasy rankings and projections at actionnetwork.com or in the app. And you can find our DFS content, tools, and models at fantasylabs.com. Until next time, let's get this shmoney.